Alex had always loved music. From the time he was very small, he would listen to melodies on the radio or hum tunes to himself. There was something about music that made him feel alive, something that spoke to him when nothing else could. But Alex did not grow up in a family of musicians. His parents worked hard, and while they loved music, they never had time to teach him or push him toward it. They wanted him to focus on school, on practical things that could secure his future. So Alex learned to play on his own, sneaking moments with an old, slightly broken piano that had been left in the corner of his apartment building's common room. He spent hours every day there. Sometimes his fingers would stumble on the keys, but he never gave up. He would play songs he remembered from the radio, or sometimes he would just make up tunes that came from his heart. No one was there to watch, no one was judging. It was just him and the piano, and in those moments he felt free. Even though the piano was old, the keys a little sticky, it became his world. He poured his feelings into it. Joy, sadness, frustration, hope. It was his escape from the ordinary, from the quiet life he led, and from the fears that sometimes kept him awake at night. Life for Alex was simple but not always easy. He worked a regular job, one that paid the bills but did not inspire him. He liked helping people, but it didn't make him feel the spark that music did. He would come home tired, but the first thing he wanted to do was sit at the piano. Sometimes he would think about performing in front of people, but those thoughts were quickly pushed away. He wasn't ready. Who would want to hear him play? He wasn't a professional, he didn't have training, he only had passion and practice. One afternoon, Alex saw a notice at the local community center. They were organizing a small charity event and were looking for someone to perform music. At first, he didn't pay much attention. He assumed they would want someone experienced, someone with proper training. But then, for some reason, he decided to ask more about it. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was a small voice in his heart telling him that this could be a chance. When he spoke to the organizer, she looked at him skeptically. She had many performers lined up already, but after a pause, she said, "Well, we do need someone to fill a short slot. It's not much, just a few minutes of music. Can you do it?" Alex felt a surge of nerves. A few minutes in front of a room full of strangers could be terrifying. His mind raced with doubts. What if he made mistakes? What if people didn't like it? But another part of him, the part that loved music more than anything, whispered that this was the moment he had been waiting for. Even if he didn't know it yet, he agreed. He didn't tell many people about it, just a few friends, because he wasn't sure what to expect. As the day of the event approached, Alex felt a mixture of excitement and fear. He spent extra hours practicing, going over the few songs he planned to play. He tried to perfect each note, but sometimes, in the quiet of his apartment, he realized that perfection wasn't what mattered. What mattered was putting his heart into the music and letting it reach the audience, whoever they might be. On the day of the event, Alex arrived early. The room was buzzing with people, volunteers, and performers. He saw singers rehearsing, small bands tuning their instruments, and dancers practicing their steps. It all seemed so professional, so polished. He felt small, unsure if he really belonged there. The organizer came over and smiled at him. "Thank you for stepping in. We know it's last minute, but just play from your heart. That's all anyone can ask." Alex nodded, taking a deep breath. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight of encouragement that he hadn't felt before. As he sat in the corner, waiting for his turn, Alex watched the crowd. Families, elderly people, young couples, all chatting, laughing, unaware of what he was about to do. He felt a strange combination of nerves and anticipation. He closed his eyes for a moment and imagined himself at the piano, letting the music flow naturally. He reminded himself that this was not about impressing anyone. It was about sharing a part of himself, something that had been quiet for so long. Finally, it was time. The organizer called his name, and Alex walked slowly to the stage. The room quieted down as he approached. He felt every eye on him, and for a moment, his heart raced. He sat down at the piano, placed his fingers on the keys, and looked at the sheet music he had brought. But then he realized he didn't need it. All the music he had memorized, All the feelings he had poured into the piano over the years were enough. He began to play, at first softly, almost timidly, like dipping a toe into water. But as the notes filled the room, Alex felt a shift. The music became his voice, telling a story that words could not capture. He played the melodies he had created in secret, songs full of hope, longing, and emotion. He played from the heart, letting every mistake, every imperfect note, become part of the story. He didn't notice the faces of the audience, only the way the music felt moving through him, connecting him to something greater. Time seemed to stretch. Minutes passed like seconds. The audience, initially distracted, began to listen. The murmurs quieted, eyes focused, and the room became a space where only the music existed. Alex could feel the energy of the people around him, not in a frightening way, but as a shared experience. He was no longer just playing. He was speaking without words, telling the story of every lonely hour, every dream kept alive, every moment spent perfecting this one skill. When he finally finished, the room stayed silent for a beat, as if everyone was holding their breath. Then the applause began, slowly at first, then swelling into a wave of clapping, cheers, and whistles. Alex felt something he had never felt before. Recognition, appreciation, and a profound connection with people he had never met. He had been given one opportunity, and he had poured everything into it. The fear, the doubt, the hours of practice, they all melted away in that moment. People came up to him afterward, smiling, shaking his hand, complimenting him on the performance. Some had tears in their eyes. Others simply said, "Thank you for sharing that." Alex smiled, overwhelmed, not used to such attention. But more than that, he felt a quiet pride, a knowledge that he had taken a step into something bigger, something he had always dreamed of, even if he hadn't realized it. That one opportunity had opened a door he had longed for but thought would never arrive. And in that moment, Alex understood that sometimes, all it takes is a single chance, and a heart willing to embrace it, to create something truly magical. After the performance, Alex returned home feeling a mix of relief and excitement. The applause still echoed in his mind, like a warm glow that wouldn't fade. For the first time, he realized that sharing his music with others was different from playing alone. It carried a weight, a kind of magic that connected him to people he had never met. But alongside the excitement was a shadow of doubt. What if he could never do it again? What if this was just a lucky moment and the next time he played, no one would care? The next few days were a whirlwind. Friends and coworkers came up to him, asking about the performance, complimenting him, some even sharing videos they had recorded. Each message made his heart race in both joy and nervousness. He started thinking about what it would mean to play again, to take this new attention seriously. It was tempting to retreat, to go back to the safety of the old piano in the corner of his building and play alone where no one could judge him. But something inside him pushed forward, whispering that this was only the beginning. Alex found himself replaying the performance over and over in his mind. He remembered how his fingers had moved, how the music had flowed without conscious thought, how the audience had listened so intently. He realized that the most important part wasn't the technical skill, though that mattered too. It was the feeling he put into each note. Music, he thought, was not about perfection. It was about telling a story, sharing a piece of one's soul. And he had done that even if he had been scared the entire time. But alongside the excitement came pressure. Alex had always been a private person, comfortable in quiet routines. Now people were watching, expecting, waiting for him to perform again. He felt the weight of their anticipation pressing down on him. What if he couldn't live up to it? What if the magic didn't happen again? These thoughts haunted him, creeping into moments when he tried to practice. He would sit at the piano, hands hovering over the keys, and suddenly feel paralyzed by fear. Each note seemed heavier, each melody more fragile. To deal with this, Alex decided to take a step back. He needed to remind himself why he loved music in the first place, why he had started playing all those years ago. So he spent hours just improvising, playing tunes that came straight from his heart, without thinking about audience or applause. Some of the melodies were clumsy, some were beautiful, but each one reminded him that the joy of music was in the creation, not the approval. He remembered the countless nights spent alone, imagining a world where his music could touch others, and now that world had become real, if only for a moment. Meanwhile, word of Alex's performance began to spread. People he didn't know were asking to see him play. Small local venues, cafes, and community centers reached out with invitations. Each message brought a flutter of excitement and anxiety. He wanted to say yes to every opportunity, but he also knew he needed time to grow, to find his confidence. So he decided to accept only a few, giving himself space to prepare mentally and emotionally. As he prepared for the next performance, Alex faced another challenge: self-doubt. He worried constantly about whether he was good enough, whether he could create the same magic again. But then he remembered the advice of the event organizer who had first given him the opportunity. She had said, "Play from your heart. That's all anyone can ask." That simple advice became his mantra. If he focused on the music itself, rather than the audience's reaction or his own fears, he could find a way to perform with honesty and courage. Practice became both a comfort and a challenge. Alex spent hours refining melodies, experimenting with new tunes, and exploring the emotions that inspired him. He learned to listen to the piano as if it were a friend, to feel each note rather than just play it. He discovered that mistakes weren't failures, they were opportunities to adapt, to explore new directions in the music. The more he embraced this approach, the more confident he felt. Slowly, the fear of performing in front of others began to fade, replaced by excitement and anticipation. The night of the second performance arrived. Alex arrived at the venue early, as he always did, to acclimate himself to the space. The room was smaller than the first event, but it felt more intimate, more personal. He could see the faces of the audience clearly, people who had come specifically to hear him play. There was a quiet buzz in the room, a mix of curiosity and expectation. Alex felt the familiar nerves rise, but he took a deep breath and reminded himself of his mantra: play from your heart. When he sat down at the piano and began to play, he felt the music flow naturally. The first few notes were gentle, almost hesitant, but soon he found his rhythm, letting the melodies carry him. He didn't focus on perfection. He focused on expression. Each note, each chord was a message, a way to connect with the audience. He could feel them listening, feeling the story he was telling through his fingers. There were moments of silence where only the music existed, and in those moments, Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The audience responded differently this time. They were more attentive, more engaged, leaning into the music, reacting to the emotions it stirred. Alex noticed smiles, nods, even some tears. He realized that his music had a power he hadn't fully understood, the ability to make people feel, to move them without words. That realization filled him with both humility and pride. He had spent so many years playing alone, and now his music was reaching others in a profound way. After the performance, Alex was approached by several people who wanted to speak with him, to thank him, to compliment him. Some asked if he would consider teaching or performing more regularly. Others simply wanted to share how the music had touched them personally. Alex listened carefully, feeling both gratitude and a sense of responsibility. He realized that this was not just about him anymore. It was about sharing something meaningful, something that could inspire and uplift others. That night, as he walked home, Alex reflected on how far he had come. From a quiet, uncertain musician practicing alone in a small apartment, he had taken a leap into the unknown and discovered a new part of himself. The fear and doubt were still there, but they were no longer overwhelming. Instead, they were reminders that growth often comes with discomfort, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Over the following weeks, Alex continued to perform in small venues, each time learning more about himself and his music. He experimented with new pieces, sometimes improvising on stage, and discovered that the audience's connection deepened when he allowed his emotions to guide him. Every performance became a dialogue, a shared experience between him and the listeners. And with each performance, He felt more confident, more alive, more certain that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Through it all, Alex never forgot the simple advice that had guided him from the start. Play from your heart. It became the foundation of his journey, the principle that shaped his music and his approach to life. He realized that one opportunity, no matter how small or uncertain, could become the spark that changed everything. All it took was courage, persistence, and a willingness to embrace the moment fully. And as Alex looked forward to the next performance, he knew that the story of his music was just beginning, and that the magic he created came not from skill alone, but from the heart that dared to share itself with the world. The day of the third performance arrived, and Alex felt a mix of excitement and nervousness that was harder to ignore than before. By now, word of his music had spread beyond the small community, and more people were coming to see him play. Some were curious, some were drawn by stories of the young man who had created magic with a few minutes of music at a small charity event. The room where he would play was larger, and the crowd more attentive. This time, the stakes felt higher. Alex was aware of it, and the pressure weighed on his shoulders. He arrived early, as always, giving himself time to settle and feel the space around him. The piano was polished and new, unlike the old, slightly broken one he had first practiced on. It gleamed under the lights, each key perfectly in place, inviting him to play. Alex approached it cautiously, running his fingers lightly over the surface before sitting down. He closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath, remembering the advice that had guided him from the start. Play from your heart. That simple idea had carried him through every performance, and he clung to it now as the fear and anticipation threatened to overwhelm him. The audience began to fill the seats, a mixture of familiar faces and strangers who had heard about him through friends or social media. Conversations murmured in the background, the shuffle of feet, the clink of glasses. Alex tried to focus on the music, not the crowd, not the expectation. Yet he couldn't ignore the awareness that all eyes would soon be on him. He felt his hands grow clammy, and for a moment, doubt crept in. What if this time the magic didn't happen? What if he stumbled, or the music fell flat? He reminded himself that he had faced fear before, and that fear had not stopped him then. It had guided him, sharpened his focus, made the music more alive. With that thought, he lifted his hands to the keys and began to play. The first notes were soft, tentative, but as he continued, confidence grew. The music started to flow naturally, each melody an extension of his emotions. Alex felt the familiar sense of connection with the piano, a dialogue that transcended words. As the performance unfolded, the room gradually quieted. The hum of conversation faded, replaced by the sound of music that seemed to fill every corner. Alex played a mix of familiar tunes and improvisations, letting his fingers wander, exploring the keys without hesitation. He lost himself in the rhythm, the harmony, the emotional currents that had guided him for years. Every note was intentional, yet free, carrying the depth of his feelings and the story he wanted to share. The audience responded in a way that surprised him. He could sense their attention shifting, their curiosity transforming into focus. Heads tilted, eyes widened, and smiles appeared as they absorbed the melodies. Some leaned forward, drawn into the music, while others sat back, closing their eyes to feel it more deeply. Alex realized that this was the true power of music. It had the ability to connect people, to create a shared experience that went beyond speech, beyond explanation. During one particularly heartfelt passage, Alex felt tears well up in his eyes. The melody was not just a song. It was a reflection of his journey, his struggles, his triumphs, and his fears. In that moment, he was not just performing for the audience. He was sharing a part of his life, a piece of his heart. The music became a bridge, linking him to everyone listening, forming an invisible thread of understanding and emotion that bound them together. The audience seemed to sense this, responding with a quiet intensity that made Alex feel both vulnerable and empowered. He moved into a faster, more complex section, his fingers dancing over the keys with agility and grace. The room seemed to pulse with the rhythm, every beat a heartbeat shared between him and the listeners. The applause and laughter that might have filled the air in other circumstances were absent, replaced by a profound silence, a collective holding of breath as everyone became part of the music. Alex felt a surge of exhilaration, realizing that the fear he had felt before had transformed into focus and creativity. He was fully present, fully alive. As he transitioned into the final part of his performance, Alex allowed himself to improvise completely, letting the music flow from his instincts rather than premeditated plans. The audience responded instinctively, leaning into the changes in tempo, the shifts in emotion, the ebb and flow of the melodies. Some whispered to each other, unable to fully contain their amazement, while others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. The effect was electric, but not in a loud, dramatic way. It was subtle, profound, and deeply moving. When the last note lingered in the air and faded, the room remained silent for a heartbeat, as if everyone collectively absorbed the moment before releasing it. Then the applause erupted, spontaneous and heartfelt. People stood, cheered, and clapped with such enthusiasm that Alex felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. The moment was surreal. He had faced his fears, embraced the pressure, and created something extraordinary. The magic he had hoped for had happened again, this time on a larger scale. After the performance, people came up to Alex with tears in their eyes, smiles on their faces, and words of praise that seemed to flow endlessly. Some thanked him for sharing a piece of his life. Others expressed how deeply the music had moved them. One older man said, "I haven't felt something like this in years. Thank you for reminding me of the beauty in simple moments." Alex listened, humbled, realizing that the impact of his music extended far beyond the technical skill or melody. It was about connection, emotion, and authenticity. As he left the venue, Alex felt a new sense of confidence. He understood that the journey was ongoing, that each performance was a step along a path of growth and discovery. The fear and doubt that had once threatened to hold him back were still present, but they were now companions, guiding him rather than hindering him. He knew that every opportunity to perform, every moment spent sharing his music, was a chance to refine his art and deepen his connection with others. In the following days, Alex reflected on what he had learned. Music was more than notes and rhythms. It was a way to communicate, to reach hearts and minds in a way words could not. The connection he had felt with the audience, the shared emotional experience, was priceless. He realized that the true magic of performance was not in perfection or technical mastery, but in courage, authenticity, and the willingness to be vulnerable in front of others. Alex began planning for future performances, but this time with a different mindset. He focused less on impressing others and more on expressing himself fully. He experimented with new melodies, new techniques, and even began composing pieces that reflected his journey and experiences. Each practice session became an exploration, a dialogue with the piano and with his own emotions. He understood that growth came from embracing challenges, not avoiding them, and that fear was simply a sign that he was on the right path. The experience of the third performance reinforced Alex's belief that one opportunity could indeed change everything. It wasn't about luck or coincidence. It was about preparation, passion, and the courage to take a chance when it presented itself. He felt gratitude for the organizers who had given him a stage, for the audience who had listened, and for himself, for daring to play despite fear. The memory of the applause, the quiet intensity of the listeners, and the shared energy of the room would stay with him forever, reminding him of the power of music and the possibilities that lay ahead. Through all of this, Alex remained humble. He knew there was still much to learn, many more performances to give, and countless opportunities to touch hearts with his music. Yet he also knew that he had already experienced something rare and extraordinary. The feeling of creating pure magic, not through showmanship or pretense, but through honesty, vulnerability, and passion. And as he looked forward to the next stage, the next audience, and the next melody, Alex felt ready to continue this journey, knowing that every note he played had the potential to inspire, to heal, and to create a connection that transcended words. Alex had grown more confident with each performance, But the fourth event brought with it a new challenge. This time, it was not just a small community gathering or a local venue. The organizers had arranged a slightly larger stage with more attendees, including people who had heard about him through word of mouth or online. The audience was diverse. Young, old, familiar, and unfamiliar faces all waiting to see what the young pianist could do. The increased attention created a mixture of excitement and nervousness, a feeling that Alex knew he would have to manage carefully. As he prepared, he felt the weight of expectation pressing on him. He spent the morning going over melodies, experimenting with variations, and rehearsing transitions between songs. Yet he realized that overthinking could dull the authenticity that had become his trademark. He took breaks to sit quietly, allowing the music to return naturally to him. He remembered that his goal was not to impress, but to connect, to speak through the keys, and to let the music carry his emotions. When the audience arrived, Alex could sense their anticipation. Conversations filled the room, laughter and small chatter blending into the background noise. People were curious, some skeptical, others excited. He walked onto the stage, each step measured, grounding himself in the moment. Sitting at the piano, he placed his hands lightly on the keys and closed his eyes, letting the quiet settle around him. For a moment, everything seemed still, as if the world was waiting for the first note to break the silence. The first few notes were gentle, almost whispering. Alex allowed himself to be fully present in the music, focusing on each sound, each emotion, each subtle nuance. The audience slowly turned their attention toward him, the murmur of conversation fading as they became drawn into the melody. The music was no longer just sound. It was a story unfolding in real time, a journey of feelings and memories expressed without words. As Alex continued, he found himself exploring deeper emotions, allowing the music to reflect both joy and struggle. He played passages of quiet reflection, followed by crescendos of energy and movement. His fingers glided over the keys, intuitive and precise, as though the piano were an extension of his own heart. Each chord resonated through the room, creating a shared experience with the audience that felt almost tangible. He could sense the room leaning into the music, the emotional resonance creating a silent connection among all present. At one point, Alex introduced a melody he had been working on for weeks, a piece inspired by moments of solitude, resilience, and hope. The notes rose and fell, delicate yet powerful, drawing the listeners into the depth of the emotion embedded in each phrase. He felt a sense of vulnerability, knowing that this piece revealed parts of himself that he had never shared publicly before. Yet, as he played, he could feel the audience responding, leaning into the music, absorbing each note with attention and care. It was a reciprocal exchange, a dance of energy between performer and listeners. Midway through the performance, Alex allowed himself to improvise, letting his feelings guide his hands. The melodies flowed freely, shifting in tone and tempo, unpredictable yet cohesive. He could see reactions in the audience, eyes widening, heads tilting, smiles forming, tears appearing. The music had taken on a life of its own, and he became a conduit for the emotions it carried. In that moment, he understood the true essence of performance. It was not about control or perfection, but about surrendering to the music and sharing it authentically. The room seemed to pulse with every note, creating a rhythm that transcended the physical space. The audience became silent witnesses to something profound, something rare and deeply moving. Alex felt an almost spiritual connection, as if the music was bridging gaps between strangers, weaving invisible threads of empathy, understanding, and shared experience. Each note carried a piece of his soul, and he could sense it reaching out, touching hearts in ways words never could. As the final piece approached, Alex's emotions surged. He poured all of his experiences, the doubts, the joys, the growth, the lessons, into the music. The melody swelled, creating a crescendo that felt both climactic and intimate. The audience responded instinctively, some on the edge of their seats, others closing their eyes, letting the waves of sound wash over them. He felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that every moment of practice, Every hour spent alone with the piano had led to this experience. When the last note resonated and slowly faded, there was a brief silence, as though the room collectively held its breath to savor the conclusion. Then the applause erupted, immediate and heartfelt, echoing through the hall. People rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some wiping away tears, all expressing a deep appreciation for the journey they had just witnessed. Alex sat for a moment, letting the warmth of the response wash over him. The sense of connection, validation, and accomplishment was overwhelming, yet humbling. After the performance, attendees approached him with gratitude, sharing how deeply the music had touched them. Some spoke of personal memories, others of emotions long forgotten, now rekindled by the performance. Alex listened, humbled by the impact, realizing that the true reward of music was not in fame or recognition, but in the ability to touch lives, to create moments of reflection, joy, and emotional resonance. The experience was transformative, both for him and for those who had shared it. Walking home that evening, Alex reflected on his journey. Each performance had taught him something new, not just about music, but about courage, vulnerability, and the human capacity to connect. He understood that the path of a musician was not only about skill, but about authenticity, about allowing oneself to be seen and heard fully. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a medium through which he could communicate, express, and share his inner world. In the days that followed, Alex continued to explore new pieces, drawing inspiration from his emotions and experiences. He experimented with melodies that evoked different moods and feelings, creating a repertoire that was uniquely his own. The lessons from the fourth performance remained vivid in his mind. Music was a conversation, a connection, and a gift that could transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. He felt motivated to continue, to grow, and to share his passion with a wider audience, knowing that each opportunity carried the potential for magic. Through it all, Alex remained grounded and humble. He recognized that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, courage, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability were equally important. He had learned to trust himself, to follow his instincts, and to let the music guide him. The experience of connecting deeply with an audience had reinforced his purpose, reminding him why he had started playing piano in the first place. To share a piece of himself, to inspire, and to create moments of beauty and emotional resonance. Alex understood that the journey was ongoing. Each performance was a chance to grow, to explore, and to deepen his connection with both the music and the listeners. He realized that magic was not an accident or a stroke of luck, but the result of passion, preparation, and the courage to embrace every moment fully. And as he looked ahead to future performances, new audiences, and unexplored melodies, he felt ready to continue this journey with an open heart, knowing that the music he shared could touch lives in ways he had only begun to discover. Alex had never expected his journey with the piano to reach the point it had. After the first few performances, he had grown in confidence, but this fifth event felt different. The organizers had arranged a larger venue with even more attendees, some of whom had heard of his previous performances and were curious to see if the young pianist could create the same magic again. The expectation in the air was palpable, and Alex felt a mix of excitement, anticipation, and nervousness that he had not experienced before. Arriving at the venue, Alex took his time to familiarize himself with the space. The stage was larger than any he had played on, and the piano gleamed under the stage lights. The room was filled with people, each bringing their own energy, curiosity, and expectations. Alex could feel the weight of their attention, a silent pressure that pushed him to do his best. Yet beneath that pressure was a thrill, the knowledge that he had the chance to share his music with so many hearts at once. He sat at the piano, letting his fingers rest lightly on the keys, feeling the familiar connection that had become his anchor. For a moment, the room seemed to fade, leaving only the piano, the music, and his own heartbeat. He reminded himself of the lessons he had learned. To play from his heart, to embrace vulnerability, and to let the music guide him rather than fear or expectation. When the first note sounded, it was soft, delicate, and full of emotion. the audience began to quiet, leaning in to hear the melodies as they unfolded. Alex allowed himself to be fully present, feeling each chord, each pause, each subtle shift in tone. He was no longer thinking about how he appeared or whether he would succeed. He was simply letting the music speak for him, expressing emotions he could not put into words. As the performance continued, Alex explored a range of emotions through his playing. He began with tender, reflective melodies that spoke of solitude and resilience. Then he transitioned into uplifting, joyful passages, filled with energy and life. Each note carried a piece of his journey, a story of determination, hope, and the passion that had driven him to this stage. The audience responded instinctively, drawn into the ebb and flow of the music, sharing in the emotional experience without even realizing it. At a certain point, Alex began to improvise, allowing the music to flow freely from his heart. He trusted his instincts, letting the melodies take him where they needed to go. The audience sensed the spontaneity and leaned in, captivated by the unpredictability and the depth of feeling. Some closed their eyes, letting the music carry them. Others leaned forward, enchanted by the skill and emotion in each note. Alex could feel the room vibrating with energy, the connection between performer and audience almost tangible. He reached the climax of his performance with a powerful, emotional piece that he had been developing in private. It was a melody full of longing, struggle, and triumph, reflecting the highs and lows of his journey. As his fingers danced across the keys, the audience was silent, completely absorbed. Alex could see tears in some eyes, smiles on others, and expressions of awe across many faces. The music had become a living presence in the room, uniting everyone in a shared emotional experience. As the final notes rang out and faded, the audience remained silent for a moment, as if collectively holding their breath. Then the applause began, a wave of sound that filled the hall with energy and admiration. It was louder, more heartfelt, and more overwhelming than anything Alex had experienced before. People stood, clapping, cheering, and some even weeping quietly. The impact of the music had reached deep into their hearts, creating a moment of pure connection and shared emotion. After the performance, attendees rushed to the stage to meet Alex, thanking him for sharing his gift. Some spoke of how the music had touched memories, brought comfort, or inspired them. Others simply expressed awe at the talent and emotion conveyed through his performance. Alex listened with humility, overwhelmed by the recognition and the profound effect his music had on so many people. He realized that the true magic was not in the notes themselves, but in the connection they created, the emotions they stirred, and the lives they touched. In the days following the performance, Alex reflected on how much he had grown. Each stage he had stepped onto had taught him something new, but this fifth performance revealed the power of vulnerability and authenticity. By playing from his heart, he had not only shared his music but also shared a piece of himself. He understood that courage, practice, and passion were essential, but the ability to be emotionally present and open was what made a performance truly unforgettable. Alex continued to explore new melodies and refine his skills. He experimented with improvisation, composition, and techniques that allowed him to convey emotion more deeply. Each practice session was a step toward growth, and he found joy in the journey as much as in the performances themselves. He recognized that his music had a purpose beyond entertainment. It had the power to inspire, heal, and connect people across experiences and emotions. With each new performance, Alex felt a deeper sense of fulfillment. He no longer feared the audience or the expectations. Instead, he embraced the opportunity to share his heart through the piano. The fifth performance had confirmed what he had begun to understand. That music, when played with authenticity and passion, could create moments of pure magic. These moments were fleeting yet eternal, touching hearts in ways that words could never capture. Alex also realized the importance of remaining humble and grounded. While the applause and recognition were gratifying, they were not the ultimate goal. The real reward was the connection, the shared experience, and the knowledge that he had given his audience something meaningful. He carried this understanding with him as he continued to perform, letting it guide his choices and his approach to music. Through all of this, Alex never lost sight of why he had started playing in the first place. The piano had been a refuge, a companion, and a source of expression. It had given him a voice when words were insufficient and a way to navigate his emotions. Now it had become a bridge to others, allowing him to touch lives and create experiences that transcended the ordinary. Looking ahead, Alex felt a sense of anticipation and possibility. He knew that each opportunity to perform was precious, each audience unique, and each piece of music a chance to connect in new ways. He understood that magic was not accidental. It was created through preparation, emotion, and the willingness to share oneself fully. The fifth performance had proven this, showing him that the power of music could reach far beyond personal satisfaction, creating profound and lasting impact. Alex's journey was far from over. Each stage, each audience, and each performance added to his growth as a musician and as a person. He embraced the challenges and the opportunities with equal enthusiasm, knowing that his music had the potential to inspire, comfort, and unite. And as he looked forward to future performances, new melodies, and unexplored possibilities, Alex felt ready to continue sharing his gift, confident that the magic he created was only beginning to unfold. Alex had reached a point in his journey where each performance felt like a chapter in a story he was still writing. The sixth and final performance in this series would be unlike any before. The audience was larger, including music enthusiasts, critics, and people who had followed his journey from the very first small gathering. There was a sense of expectation in the air, a mix of curiosity, hope, and anticipation. Alex felt the familiar flutter of nerves but also a deep, steady confidence born from all he had experienced so far. He arrived at the venue early, taking the time to explore the stage and the piano. The instrument was immaculate, polished to a shine, each key perfectly aligned. He placed his hands gently on the keys, feeling the smooth texture under his fingertips. As he sat, he closed his eyes and let the silence envelop him. This was a quiet moment, a pause before the performance, where he reminded himself of the lessons learned. Play from the heart, embrace vulnerability, and trust the music to guide him. When the audience began to settle, Alex felt a sense of connection even before he played a note. He could sense the energy in the room, the anticipation that made the air almost tangible. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly, centering himself. Then he pressed the first key, a soft, resonant note that seemed to echo into the hearts of the listeners. The audience fell silent, their attention fully drawn to the music that was unfolding. From the beginning, Alex allowed the music to tell a story. He moved through melodies of reflection and emotion, each note carrying a depth of feeling that had grown from years of practice, patience, and personal experiences. The audience responded instinctively, drawn into the ebb and flow of the music. Alex could see reactions in faces, smiles, tears, attentive eyes, all mirroring the emotions he poured into each phrase. Midway through the performance, Alex introduced a new piece he had composed especially for this occasion. It was a melody that captured his journey, the struggles, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs he had experienced along the way. As he played, he felt a vulnerability unlike any before, but instead of fear, there was a sense of freedom. The music flowed naturally, each note a reflection of his heart, connecting him with the audience in a way that transcended words. The improvisational section came next, where Alex let his fingers explore without constraint. He allowed the melodies to shift with his emotions, moving from soft, gentle passages to bold, dramatic chords. The audience was captivated, absorbed in the unpredictability and authenticity of the performance. Some closed their eyes, letting the music carry them. Others leaned forward, engaged with every note. In that room, for that moment, there was a shared energy, a collective experience that was both intimate and powerful. As the final part approached, Alex poured everything he had into the music. He played with passion, emotion, and a sense of completeness that reflected the growth he had undergone over the series of performances. Every note resonated with purpose. Every chord told a story. The audience could feel the intensity, the depth, and the sincerity of the performance. It was more than skill. It was connection, vulnerability, and heart translated into sound. When the last note lingered and gradually faded, there was a moment of profound silence. The room seemed to collectively hold its breath, as if savoring the beauty of what had just transpired. Then the applause erupted, spontaneous and heartfelt, echoing through the hall. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and some weeping quietly. The energy in the room was electric yet tender, a reflection of the journey they had shared with Alex through his music. After the performance, attendees approached Alex, expressing their gratitude, awe, and admiration. Many shared personal stories of how the music had touched them, inspired them, or rekindled emotions they had long forgotten. Alex listened with humility, overwhelmed by the impact of his music. He realized that the true reward of his journey was not applause or recognition, but the ability to touch lives, create moments of connection, and inspire through authenticity. Reflecting on his journey after the performance, Alex thought about how much he had grown. From the shy, uncertain musician who played alone in a small apartment, he had evolved into someone capable of connecting with hundreds of people through music. Each performance had taught him valuable lessons: the importance of courage, the power of vulnerability, and the significance of playing from the heart. He understood that talent alone was not enough. Passion, dedication, and authenticity were equally vital. Alex continued to explore new compositions, refine his improvisational skills, and discover new ways to convey emotion through the piano. Each practice session became a journey in itself, an opportunity to explore feelings, tell stories, and connect more deeply with his own heart. He understood that music was not just an art form but a language of the soul, a bridge that could unite people and create shared experiences beyond words. Through all the performances, Alex remained grounded and humble. He understood that the magic he created was not accidental. It was born from years of preparation, emotional investment, and the courage to share his true self. He also recognized that every audience, every venue, and every performance was unique, offering new challenges and opportunities for growth. This understanding allowed him to approach each opportunity with openness, curiosity, and gratitude. Looking ahead, Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that the journey was ongoing, that there were countless more melodies to explore and new audiences to inspire. Each performance was a chance to deepen his connection with music and the people who experienced it. The lessons of courage, vulnerability, and authenticity would guide him in all future endeavors, reminding him that the power of music lies not in perfection, but in the heart that dares to play and share. In the quiet moments after the sixth performance, Alex reflected on the journey as a whole. He thought about the first small audience, the nervousness, the mistakes, and the growth that had followed. He remembered how fear had once threatened to hold him back, and how courage had allowed him to move forward despite it. He understood that the journey had not only shaped him as a musician but also as a person, teaching him resilience, empathy, and the transformative power of sharing one's heart. Alex realized that his story was a testament to the possibilities that arise when opportunity meets preparation, passion, and courage. He knew that one chance, taken with honesty and commitment, could indeed create magic, not only for oneself but for others. The applause, the tears, and the smiles of the audience were proof that music had the power to touch lives, bridge hearts, and create unforgettable moments. As Alex looked toward the future, he felt a sense of excitement and possibility. The journey was far from over, but he carried with him the knowledge that the magic of music was real, tangible, and transformative. Each note he played had the potential to inspire, heal, and connect, and he was ready to continue sharing his gift with the world. The sixth performance marked not an end, but a beginning, a continuation of a journey filled with emotion, growth, and the unending joy of creating pure magic on the piano.